Today we are going to start our new book. It is called Lulu and the Brontosaurus, and it's written by Judith Vorst and illustrated by Lane Smith. I love this book. It's so funny. So on the back, it tells us, Lulu always gets what she wants, even if it takes screeching till the light bulbs burst, throwing herself on the floor, kicking her heels, and waving her arms in the air. Until now. For when she asks her parents to give her a Brontosaurus for her birthday, they say, for maybe the first time ever, no. So Lulu takes matters into her own hands and finds herself the perfect Brontosaurus for a pet. Or is he? I'm not telling. Here we go. Lulu and the Brontosaurus. Okay, all right. You don't have to tell me. I know. I know that people and dinosaurs have never lived on Earth at the same time. And I know that dinosaurs aren't living now. I even also know that paleontologists, folks who study dinosaurs, decided that a dinosaur that was once called a Brontosaurus, a very nice name, shouldn't be called Brontosaurus anymore, and changed it to a Potosaurus, a kind of ugly name. But since I'm the person writing this story, I get to choose what I write, and I'm writing about a girl and a Brontosaurus. So if you don't want to read this book, you can close it up right now, and you won't hurt my feelings. And if you still want to read it, here goes. Chapter 1. There once was a girl named Lulu, and she was a pain. She wasn't a pain in the elbow. She wasn't a pain in the knee. She was a pain, a very big pain in the butt. Now, Lulu was an only child, and her mom and dad gave her everything she wanted. And guess what? Lulu wanted everything. Tons of candy, tons of toys, tons of watching, tons of cartoons on TV. And if her mom and dad ever said, and they hardly ever said it, sorry, darling, we think you've had enough, Lulu would screech until the light bulbs burst and throw herself down on the floor, and then she would kick her heels and wave her arms. And pretty soon, her mom and dad would say, well, just this once, and let her have whatever it was she wanted. And here is our first picture of Lulu. Chapter 2. 2 weeks before Lulu's birthday, she announced to her mom and her dad that she wanted a Brontosaurus for her B-Day present. What did she say? What? A Brontosaurus? Yes, she wanted a Brontosaurus for a pet. At first, Lulu's mom and dad just thought she was making a little joke. And then they saw, oh, horrors, that she was serious. They patiently explained that a Brontosaurus is a quite enormous dinosaur who lives in forests, not in people's houses. Is that where a Brontosaurus would live? In a forest? I'm afraid I'm not absolutely sure, but since I'm the person writing this story, I'm putting this Brontosaurus in a forest, along with a lot of other wild beasts that I'm absolutely sure did not live on Earth when dinosaurs were there. Anyway, Lulu's mom and dad continued explaining to her, although a Brontosaurus is into eating plants, not animals, including human animals like Lulu, and although it is cute in a long neck pinhead way, it is much too huge and too wild to be a good pet. A dog, a cat, a goldfish, a bird, a gerbil, a guinea pig. Yes. A Brontosaurus? Definitely no. Chapter 3. No? Her mom and dad were telling Lulu no? Lulu wasn't used to hearing no, and she really hated hearing no. To show how much she hated it, she screeched and screeched and screeched till all the light bulbs in the living room burst. I want a Brontosaurus for my birthday present, she said in between screeches. I want a Brontosaurus for a pet. Well, maybe we could get you a nice pet rabbit, said her mom. Or even, said her dad, a nice pet rat. No, 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 screeched Lulu. I want a Brontosaurus for a pet. Then she threw herself down on the floor and kicked her heels and waved her arms and screeched some more. There is Lulu and her parents while she's throwing her temper tantrum. Chapter 4. 4 days, 8 days, 10 days, 12 days passed. Lulu kept saying, I want a Brontosaurus. Her mom and dad just kept saying, no. Lulu kept screeching and throwing herself on the floor and kicking her heels and waving her arms. Lulu's mom and her dad kept saying no. Until finally, on the 13th day, the day before Lulu's birthday, right after lunch, Lulu said to her mom and her dad, okay then, foo on you. She had terrible manners. If you aren't going to get me a Brontosaurus, I'm going out and getting one for myself. Lulu packed a small suitcase, said goodbye to her mom and dad, and walked out the door. And they let her go, partly because they thought she'd change her mind and come running back home in about 2 minutes, and partly because it was nice to not have her screeching and kicking and waving and being a pain. Let's have a cup of tea and a couple of cookies, Lulu's mom said to her dad. Excellent idea, her dad replied. So they went into the kitchen and started munching on some cookies and sipping tea. And pretty soon, they'd forgotten all about Lulu. There's Lulu's suitcase. Chapter 5. But Lulu hadn't forgotten that she was going to get herself a Brontosaurus. And luckily for Lulu, there was a great big forest not too far from her house. The animals in the forest had never bothered anyone because nobody had ever bothered them. But watch out, creatures! Here came Lulu, trudging through the forest, swinging her small suitcase back and forth, and in a quite loud voice that was sure to wake the napping animals from their naps, singing this song. I'm gonna get a Brontosaurus for a pet. I'm gonna get a Brontosaurus for a pet. The forest that Lulu was trudging through was overgrown with trees whose branches scratched her face and whose roots she tripped over. But Lulu hardly noticed because she was thinking just one thought. And you know what that was. Oh, I forgot to show you guys. Here's a picture of Lulu singing her song. So on she went, swinging her suitcase and singing her song too loud and annoying all the creatures in the forest and being the same big pain out of there that she was back at her home until slithering down from a branch of a tree came a long, fat, brown, black snake who had been peacefully snoozing till Lulu woke him up, sleepy and grumpy and hissing in an exceedingly nasty hiss. He wrapped himself around Lulu, around and around and tighter, and told her she'd really be sorry that she'd awakened him. I'm going to squeeze you to death, he said. Okay, so snakes don't talk, but in my story they do. And Lulu said, not if I squeeze you deader. So Lulu squeezed the snake hard, and the snake yelled, ow, and quickly unwrapped himself from Lulu. And Lulu, wiping some snake sweat from the palms of her snake squeezing hands, went on trudging deeper into the forest. Chapter 6. I'm gonna get a Brontosaurus for a pet. I'm gonna get a Brontosaurus for a pet. Singing her Brontosaurus song in a louder and louder voice, Lulu was waking up nappers all over the forest. Some were annoyed, some were extremely annoyed. Among the extremely annoyed was a silky, slinky lady tiger who yawned and stretched and rubbed her bright green eyes, and then, with a ferocious roar, sprang out from behind some trees and pounced on Lulu. You're a big pain, said the tiger, so I'm going to eat you up for my afternoon snack. Said Lulu, I'm bonking you on the head. And swinging with all her might, Lulu bonked the tiger with her suitcase. The tiger yelled, ow, and fell down in a pitiful black and orange striped heap on the forest floor. Lulu brushed off a few tiger hairs that were stuck to the side of her tiger bonking suitcase and went on trudging deeper into the forest. I don't know about Lulu, you guys. She does not seem like a very nice person. Okay, we will read one more chapter. Chapter 7. As the afternoon turned into late afternoon and then into early evening, Lulu trudged even deeper into the forest. When she felt hungry, she opened her suitcase and took out a pickle sandwich. When she felt cold, she took out a sweater and socks. And when it got buggy, she opened her suitcase and took out some bug spray and sprayed. She was feeling a little tired, but she kept trudging and swinging her suitcase and singing her song. I'm gonna get a Brontosaurus for a pet. I'm gonna get a Brontosaurus for a pet. Now, a big black bear who liked listening to the music that insects make in the early evening, couldn't hear their song because Lulu's was louder. Plus, a lot of insects were deader because Lulu kept spraying them with her spray. This made him mad. Then madder than that. He growled a thunderous growl, and then he lumbered heavily down the forest path and stood on his two hind legs in front of Lulu. Waving a big clawy paw on her face, he said, "You're interrupting my favorite program." Please don't give me an argument. In my story, bears are allowed to have favorite programs. So I'm going to scratch you to pieces with my claws. Lulu glared at the big black bear and put her hands on her hips. "Nobody's scratching me," she told the bear. Then she jumped as high as she possibly could in the air. Then she landed as hard as she possibly could on his foot. The bear yelled, "Ow!" and went limping away as fast as a bear could limp with one stomped foot. And after shaking some of the broken bear toenails off the bottoms of her bear stomping shoes, Lulu went trudging deeper into the forest. And that is where we're going to stop with Lulu. Whew. I wonder what trouble she's going to get into next.